what I want you guys to do, as weird as this is, as weird of a concept as this is, there are rules, there are laws during war. And if you guys watch the news, what does the news present to you about war, Josie?
All the bad things. They don't focus on the good parts of war.
Okay. There are laws that govern what people can and cannot do in war. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah.
Why?
Good extreme measurements.
Okay. Don't have extreme things happen. Leonard.
Keeps things in check.
Keeps things in check. Now what I want you guys to do is, if you were this committee to write international humanitarian law, laws that are going to protect human beings during armed conflict, what would you write as young 14, 15, 16-year-olds? Write your laws, your international humanitarian laws. Why don't you guys all get together here? They all get to write their rules of war, where they sit down as a group and they determine, if they were the people in charge, what are the rules if war is taking place. And then we look at the actual basic rules, the international humanitarian laws, and they see that the rules that they wrote are actually rules that exist.
Just like laws that protect people. You tell me what to write now, right? Stuff like keep children.
Doesn't mean it's right. So what do you need to do? You need to write a law. So the person who's responsible for killing the civilian,
I mean, in your hand.
Yeah, but like,
are they still a civilian then? Are they still a civilian if they have a gun in their hands? But if they're carrying a weapon, are they a combatant? Are they someone who could hurt you? Then they're part of the combat. They're no longer a civilian. That changes. Well, that's why it's so hard, because you have so many different factions and so many different underground groups.
They're not even in uniforms at all.
So think about that for a law. Think about protections. Think about if war came to your front yard. How would you want to be protected? We just look at the human side of history. I look at the human side of history because I think if the kids feel it, they get it. So where this will fit in better is at the end of our school year, our last unit is going to be on global interdependence and human rights. So I'm going to put in a lot of the international humanitarian law curriculum into that actual unit when we focus on how small the world actually is and how we as human beings need to be protected. What I want to do is go around to each group and just have you read off your laws.
No uses of poisonous gas or friendly fire. No bribes towards government officials. Allowed to leave war with legitimate excuses. No nuclear, atomic, chemical, or germ warfare.
No tearing families apart. 3, no children soldiers. 4, no shattered childhoods. 5, protect children in war.
Protect neutral countries. No separation of families. Protect mentally and physically challenged people. No total war. Equal distribution of supplies, and no dictatorship.
I think freshmen are so energetic and squirrely and wonderful, and they are interested in anything. And if you can present it to them in a way that's going to engage them, they will latch on to anything and just be wonderful in the classroom. They're still young and they're still idealistic for the most part, and I truly believe that even though maybe they're not as mature as your juniors, your seniors who can think a little bit more critically about it, I don't think we should keep this information from them, because they do have that energy and they do have a little bit of passion for something that really seems to matter, and this curriculum really matters. And if we can shape their ideals as far as how they can change the world just by one little thing that they could do, or by learning about international humanitarian law, they're going to share that information that will have a larger impact. Every single one of you has international humanitarian laws written down, and you didn't know anything about what the laws were. Are you impressed with yourselves? Yes. Let me show you so you're even more impressed with yourselves. I have the laws here. Many of you, all of you, talked about leaving civilians out of it. And that's how it should be, shouldn't it? Right? They don't have a role in the war. They just maybe happen to live in a country where a war is going on. They didn't decide that the country was going to be at war, right? Wounded combatants, so people who were in the combat but got hurt, and then prisoners of war. And did you guys have the protection on prisoners? Okay. Then the last one are the protected emblems and the protected places like hospitals and the Red Cross. If a Red Cross is on a tent, you can't go in and bomb that tent because there are medical things happening where that Red Cross is. There are people being taken care of that are out of the combat, okay? You probably came into class not really knowing that these things existed, or maybe, well, you know, maybe there are rules in war. You wrote them today. Some of you wrote them word for word of how they exist in print. And every single country needs to adhere to these rules. Has every single country committed crimes against these rules? Yes, including the United States. And we need to keep that in mind. We are not, this country is not above these rules. This country, the United States, did not write these rules. The United States agrees to these rules, okay? But it's really, really important for you guys to understand that these laws are out there. These laws are protecting civilians and combatants. And more often than not, people follow these rules. Combatants follow these rules. And I think we really need to keep that in mind. That it must be one heck of a job to be someone in the military and all of the pressure that goes along with that. In Module 2A, the reason why I started with that was because the kids haven't been exposed to this very much. And they really don't need to be exposed to international humanitarian law. And in fact, the less exposure, I think, the better. Because I bet you I had 20 kids leave this room thinking that they were it, that they were really smart, because they literally wrote the rules and they saw that what they had to do as a group, the rules, even though they thought it was funny to not kill livestock. You know, some kids laughed about that. They ended up seeing that in the rules, that's actually in there, that you can't tamper with people's food sources. So this one is a great one because you can approach it blind, especially keeping the kids blind. And I think it's much more empowering for the students if you do leave, you know, some mystery to it, so they can have that success and see that, you know, they're not too dumb. They're very smart people, and they can write these rules that scholars have written.